Hi, Jody. I'm so happy to be talking to you again after a few years now.
Hi, Susan. Yeah, it's really good to be back here with you. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. And I wanted to start our talk out with the idea of healing, of how you and I have been in the field for a while and we've been working with healing and helping people for many years. And I wondered if we could really hone into some of the key points of how to help people through trauma and grief. Like, what would be some of the magic tips or the gems that we could give people today who are listening
Mhm.
about how to develop a way of working with themselves when they're in those kinds of times?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I, as I think about it, grief and trauma. I, if I may widen that to include also any kind of identity loss or identity crisis that people may be going through and not labeled with the words grief or trauma, something that kind of shatters the life structure that we've known, that they've known. I think what comes to me, that's a couple of things that are important that I know I help people in these times with. The first one is to remember that these are not problems to solve, right? And we tend to approach them with our mind, right? And while the mind is important for growth and we want that online, these are moments, particularly the type of healing that often really calls on us to digest and metabolize and really integrate on a deeper emotional level. It's the type of healing that is not where insight or doing. I think people can get really wrapped up in doing and very anxious about what do I do? How do I get over this grief or this loss? It's the type of healing where we really want to come into contact with the body and the nervous system in relational safety, whether that's with another person, a therapist, guide, or coach, spirit, community, nature, life itself, right? And we want to, and that's the depth that these times need to really have a different kind of emotional direct contact with the place where the pain lives, the nervous system, the body. The other thing I would say that I found is important is that you can trust the process. Healing in these times is an organic process. So I find it helpful to think about the how the body knows how to heal. For example, when our physical body knows how to heal, when we get a cut, we don't actually have to do much. We might support it. We might put a band-aid on it. We might put antibiotic cream on it. We might rest. But essentially, the body, the cellular body, already has the map for healing. And emotional healing is the same in these times. It's a
Mm.
wild ride, right? It really throws us because it can take us over to a degree that we're not used to. And it does take psychic energy, and that can feel scary to people. And so I really want to remind people that they can trust the process when they're attending to the emotional layer.
Mhm. Yeah, it's interesting just that you said that, and I'm going to just pull in a personal
Mhm.
example about how to trust the process and the body knows how to heal or wants to heal, like always wants to heal. I was
Mhm.
having just a minor procedure a few days ago or a week ago, and I remembered I got through it so easily because I really
Mhm.
sat with my mind for a while to talk about what was going to happen and to get myself to be really relaxed. And I also
Mhm.
trusted my provider a lot, you know. Um, and I just had one down day when it was supposed to be a bunch of down days. And I was like, wow, that was fast. But I felt
Mhm.
like it was because I gave myself some permission to prepare myself and just be in the thing instead of like pulling back from
Mhm.
with fear from what was happening. And
Absolutely.
yeah.
Permission's so important. And it sounds like in that permission,
Mm.
you allowed your body to be attended to and relaxed. So important.
Right. I think there is that, like, rigid and going forward and keeping yourself in a moving and emotion around something that's really hard is the protective measure that sometimes we just don't allow ourselves to
Mhm.
trust that there's a process, and actually we can find ways to move through the process instead of
Mhm.
ignore that there's a process.
Yeah. I would add absolutely, and I would add that yeah, it's really scary. I mean, even a one-time situation like your example, and for sure something bigger that's really changing our life course. It's scary and it's awful. It's awful to be in pain, right? No one wants these times. No one would choose them. We really avoid them. Me too, right? And it we when we're in them, life can just give them to us. There's a whole layer of suffering that we can with that permission and really working with the nervous system and attending to the that aspect of it that can help with the anxiety and take a whole layer of that struggle down quite a
Mhm.
bit.
Mhm.
It helps.
So you talked about the nervous system, and a lot of people are talking about the nervous system and the vagus nerve. I wonder if you are able to describe that a little bit more, because I know every time people hear it a different way, sometimes they get it a little bit more.
Sure, sure. Yeah, so this is one of the systems that I work with a lot with people. So I think what might be helpful is to talk about the ladder, the polyvagal ladder. So this is a system that describes the three main nervous system states that we move through all the time, every day, depending on how safe or threatened we feel. And one thing that's important to understand here is that this is good that we have this, right? And it's happening on a nuance level all the time. It's helping us stay safe emotionally as well as physically, or ways where we typically tend to think of safety as physical threat, but it's actually at work helping us stay emotionally safe, and we need it to function. So at the top is the ventral vagal state,
Mm-hmm.
and that is what most where we like to hang out, right? And that might be, no, we might think of that as feeling regulated, feeling calm, connected, present. This is where we're social in our social self. This is you might have people might know the words like rest and digest. This is that state. Um, our adult self is online. We can respond, not react. Then so that's at the top of the ladder, and then the middle is the sympathetic state, and this is where the body goes into fight or flight. So here we might experience anger, agitation, urgency, anxiety, over functioning, over efforting, wanting to flee the room, feeling like I got to get out of here. And then at the bottom is the dorsal vagal state. And this is where our nervous system has determined there's enough threat to kick us into this very frozen state. We might name it as feeling withdrawn. A lot of people will resonate with the word defeated, um, dissociated. And I think what's very helpful, especially in times of loss and relationship transition, any kind of transition, is that this is at work in us. It's not simply grief, this is happening also. And people feel that they might, often people come in feeling like I saying I'm depressed when they're really in a dorsal vagal state. It can feel like depression. We also have thoughts that follow these states, and we're way more
Mm-hmm.
used to tracking our thoughts than we tend to be in tracking our nervous system and our body. So we might have, so we in each of these states we have corresponding thoughts about ourselves, each our relationships and the world or the future. So, for example, a dorsal vagal state, we might have very defeated thoughts like, there's no hope, right? Everything that can feel good is now feels, like terrible or difficult. I'm worthless, stupid, ugly, too old. All of these thoughts kind of live in this dorsal vagal state often. So when we learn more about this, it can be really helpful to work with for healing. We can go direct to working with the nervous system and the body rather than getting really caught in trying to figure out these thoughts.
Mm. Great. Okay, that was a really good explanation. Do you ever when someone comes into your session, you might silently identify, but do you lead them through something to get them to be more aware of where they are in their bodies?
Absolutely. I lead people through nervous system based sort of mindfulness exercises.
Mm.
I will try to shift them out of looping in these kind of thoughts, often sharing with them some of this. And, you know, I think as healers, we can sometimes get stuck in trying to help them figure out these thoughts if we don't know how this works. So it's important to slow down and identify what's happening. And I know you have modalities that help folks do this also.
Right, right. It is kind of like slowing people down in the looping and actually doing that educational, but also that somatic piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of okay, this is where you might be, but also like
Mm-hmm.
what can you do about it to slow down? Like how can you
Mm-hmm.
actually get yourself to catch up with your, or not even to catch
Mm-hmm.
up, like to just be in your body.
Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely. Sometimes it's things that feel really silly to people, like moving the body, shaking, walking. There's certain things that you can do to try to upregulate the nervous system, and you actually have to go up through the sympathetic state, so more anxiety or fight or flight can come on board
Hmm.
before you get to ventral vagal.
Hmm. What do you feel like are some of the other healing modalities that you pull into your work when you feel like people are having or going through or suffering through a major identity life transition that feels unbearable to them?
Mhm. Yeah, I appreciate the question. One of the ways that I work with people, if they're ready, if appropriate, is working having people do personal retreat work. So expanded state work where they'll come to we'll work together with tools like the like psychedelics, like other forms of expanded state, like breath work, working with nature, ritual, and ceremony. So that work is really powerful for healing. It helps people have, while awareness and insight are important, they're different than change work. They're not really the same thing. And to have deep, sustainable change, you really need to contact your material when you're in a expanded state, different state, right? To experience yourself differently. This is where defenses can soften, protectors can relax, and we can access the nervous system. We can access direct experience of the places where pain lives, where um, the nervous system is actually wired to protect us, but in ways that are kind of getting in the way of healing.
Mm. So that way people get to re-experience themselves a little differently without their
Mhm.
defenses, and they actually get to look at whatever the perceived threat is a little differently.
Absolutely. With some of these expanded state activities and practices, it's much easier to do that, to kind of soften and really approach difficult material that are protectors or defenses won't let us get to very, very easily, if at all. And there are certainly modalities that people are using in the typical therapy frame that do help with this. And there's just more that she can do with a ceremonial container.
Mm-hmm.
Right, EMDR is one of them.
Right,
Hakomi, internal family systems parts work, and many
right,
others.
right. Let's just define each of those so that people can hear what they
Hmm.
are, because I know that
Hmm.
these are things we know so well, but
Yeah.
and that use tools. Which one should we start with?
Why don't you define EMDR? It's one that I'm trained in, but I don't use as much anymore.
Well, I interestingly just started taking some review courses because I
Mm.
sometimes I know as clinicians we go in and out of using certain techniques, and then
Hmm.
so I decided that I really wanted to go back into so basically what it is you do an eye movement that settles your I guess your hypervigilant part of your mind so that you can
Hmm.
actually feel more what's going on and what the target
Hmm.
is and why it bothers you, and have different ways that your mind might be able to process it differently.
Hmm.
um, and the part I want to just call to attention is that it was a 2.0 like the upgrade of the EMDR training,
Hmm.
because it was a
Hmm.
refresher, but it was what they talked about was like to really install the resources you can do something different. So resources might be that you
Hmm.
can find different ways to handle something when you're having a difficult time or the target comes up. Like let's say you had a car accident, right? And so every time you get into a car, you might
Hmm.
go through some kind of way of reminding yourself of your resources that you can actually
Hmm.
handle driving that car now because you've
Hmm.
done some of the work on the trauma part. But the trauma might still tap on your window a little bit to remind you that it's there. And you can actually remind yourself of the resourcing, even if you just do things like watching your windshield wiper go back and forth, or
Hmm.
you can, maybe just tapping on your steering wheel a little bit so that you're
Hmm.
actually getting into some kind of state where there's a bilateral movement that relaxes your brain. So you can actually have like what you talked about, the adult brain is more online, not the trauma brain. The
Hmm.
rational brain is more in line, not the emotional brain. And so but the way that you actually might test it out a little bit that you're in your resources and you're not in your trauma is you might ask yourself a question that has nothing to do with what's going on at all, right? Like, remember who your elementary school teacher was, kind of thing. And then you can see, like, oh, I was able to answer that question because my trauma really wasn't taking up all the space.
Hmm.
Right.
Hmm.
So it's kind of a test that clinicians sometimes do, but one could do it to themselves to be like, am I really present right now in this, in what's happening right now, or I'm back in my trauma trigger, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, so that was a little bit of a, you know,
Hmm.
a new way of talking about EMDR because again, in the
Hmm.
review, you kind of go into like, well, what's the new way of learning about this, right?
Yes,
How are
things
people
get
really
updated.
studying this and talking about this now?
Yeah. It's interesting. It brings to mind, from what I understand when I did that training, is that there's it connects with what I was saying earlier about healing being an organic process, that there's something innate to our system in our wholeness that knows how to heal, that the bilateral stimulation is able to do rewiring work in the
Hmm.
brain, in the nervous system. And they don't really understand quite how that works when I last remember learning this, but that it does work. And it's
Right,
been,
right. I always remember and tell people that I introduced the technique to is that the person, Francine Shapiro, who was a founder of it, talked a lot about that she developed the theory just watching people in a grocery line holding their babies and like going
mm,
back and forth. And it's that
mm,
soothing
mm,
that actually helps a new neural pathway kind of develop, right,
mm,
in the
mm,
brain. So it might not be like I'm standing in a line with my mom in my arms and I'm going to scream my head off, but like you're actually soothing
mm.
yourself and your baby at the same time. So
Yes.
that new neural pathway, like, we can actually get through this line without screaming the whole entire time, right? Like sometimes we
Hmm.
see people in grocery stores where that's happening,
Right.
and that it is the new neural pathway that is allowed to come through instead of the trauma or the target memory that's the upsetting memory, right?
Yes, yes,
Um,
it's amazing how
mhm.
this works.
Yeah, and I think that's what happens a lot with these alternative forms of therapy is like journeying work and also parts work is that we start opening up a new neural pathway. So we're not just thinking about something or experiencing something the same way we always have. We have some.
That's right. And
Mhm.
I want to add there that there's also a really important aspect of this work that we're talking about, the expanded state work, that's relational, right? It's not happening alone. It's happening with a
Mhm.
guide, a therapist, a
Right.
coach, or um, in relationship. And that is the fact that you're not alone allows something different to be felt. It's really part of what takes it from
Hmm.
just feeling myself, which feeling my feelings, which is healing sometimes, but to experiencing myself able to be seen by another person and held in a different way without my normal strategies of disappearing or collapsing or people pleasing, or to have a different relational experience. If I do those things, someone is helping me in not leave myself in that moment of what is really a relational trauma, a moment that got created through a hurt that it was too overwhelming at some point for my system to tolerate. So I learned how to leave myself to protect. And so the relational aspect of the work is really also very important, is what I hold.
I agree. I agree. You can't work on your relationships alone, I think. You have to
Mm-hmm.
work on and practice new
Mm-hmm.
kind of ways of being or thinking or being with yourself with
Yeah.
somebody observing it or actually holding space for you, right? You
Mm-hmm.
have to practice it somewhere. Or even get feedback in a way that sounds like, oh, that's exactly what's happening. Yes, that's true. That I can feel that
Mm-hmm.
more.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking a little bit earlier is when psychedelics were first being introduced to the the psychotherapy community, a lot of it was really done differently than it is now. And so now there's so
Mm-hmm.
much more emphasis on integration where you actually do relational work with somebody helping
Mm-hmm.
you understand some of the things that you got to experience and how it
Mm-hmm.
might support you more, that,
Mm-hmm.
those thoughts or feelings or experiences.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think, and I'm imagining you do this too, is that there's something especially powerful about having that relational, those relational moments approached in the expanded state.
Right. Right. That it feels also safe
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to be in that expanded state and someone being with you.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's a big part of what heals.
Do you feel like with this, I'm not sure if you integrate part work into your um, journeying
I
and
do.
personal retreat,
Mm-hmm.
and that's something too. Maybe we can just say briefly like what that means because I know that's such an important technique.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I can speak generally about it. I should say I'm not certified as an IBS therapist, but I do have some training in it. Um, so that is the what's helpful to share there, I think, is that in a general way, we have different we have every person has a wholeness of the self. We might think of this as our wise self. And we also have parts that have distinct feelings, needs, thoughts, beliefs that often correspond to different ages. You might think of them, but some of them, but they have jobs, right, that they do for us. They protect us, manage our lives and the people in them, and our um, impulses and needs in ways that are trying to protect us, and often they have costs. So the idea is to relate the parts work helps helps you get in touch with these aspects of self and hold them in uh, as much of a um, compassionate way so that you can get really curious about them and relate to them as important and worthy of your interest. And so that there's something healing about doing that.
Hmm.
And so that can be a way to that expanded state work really um, it's powerful to meet those parts and have them soften and loosen, and it can really reorganize identity to do that kind of work rather than just process content about your thoughts about them. You're really able to meet them in a more direct way, and this happens in the in more of the like typical talk therapy session as well
Right.
as personal retreats and other types of work.
Right. So this could be one of the ways that a tool that's used to integrate some of the things that come up in the personal
Hmm.
retreat, right? That
Yeah,
there's that
absolutely.
part of me, or I just met that part of me that really
Hmm.
handles that thing in my life that's hard for me to handle or something.
Hmm.
Uh-huh.
Hmm.
Do you feel
And
like overall, oh, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
oh, I was just going to add there, and when they get met that way, they can loosen their grip and start to do different jobs for us, right? That energy can
Hmm.
be used to do different jobs, like um, that are much more that serve our wholeness much more.
Yeah. Right. They can actually not be having to try so hard or work so hard for us. They can
That's
actually
right.
have
Exactly.
a nicer assignment. That
Exactly.
we get to
Exactly.
actually play and celebrate
Yes.
and be joyful and
Yes.
calm.
Play.
Yeah.
Be present in life's
Yeah.
in play and joy. Yeah. Hmm.
So this opening to this work with the clients that you see, do you feel like you've had or your clients have had a better effect with how they're working on their healing and their grief and their
Hmm.
trauma? Do you feel like that it's been something that shifted people either faster or more fully or easier?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. Absolutely. So it for people who I see as a therapist, the therapy is often supported by expanded state work, personal retreats with me, and it absolutely is. Both are important, right? There's a degree of readiness that you need. You need insight, awareness. You need a observing mind on board to self-reflect, to see yourself. You can't really do expanded state work till you have that. So you need a certain degree of self, of ego development on board before there's readiness. But once there is that readiness, yes, absolutely. It's a um, it allows for access to some of these automatic patterns that people name as people pleasing, codependency, overfunctioning, imposter syndrome. And these are really hard things to get to unless there's some way they can become really hardwired in the nervous system. And often what happens with increased awareness is someone will become much more conscious and be able to track, and it's like and then this frustration starts happening because it's like, oh God, I know this isn't serving me. the people please, like, why do I do it? I want it. I want my voice. I want to own my voice. I want to say what I need. And then when I'm in those moments, like I just can't. And they start becoming really frustrated. And there's a degree of shame, they can feel like I'm weak. What is wrong with me? I see it, but I can't change it. And I think so, particularly with these patterns that are on automatic, expanded state work is one of the best ways I have ever seen to really access and heal at this deep level. People can have a degree of contact with this experience in the nervous system that's too frightening, right, to go towards without help, without this kind of expanded state. It's the nervous system experiences it as I can't survive that. Like if I go towards that,
Hmm.
it will destroy me. And people know it's not logical, but maybe folks listening can relate to some place like this in themselves. Like you might be saying like something bad will happen. And people say to me, yeah, something bad will happen. I don't know what it is, right? It doesn't make sense, but that's how it feels. I can't go there. So that's the difference. That's the depth that we can get to with
Hmm.
expanded state work. So it does. I had a someone I worked with recently who um, was able to experience. It's just she had a lived experience of I'm
Mm.
good, right? I'm good. I'm actually good. I'm actually good. And she kept saying to me, "Can you say it to me again?" I said, "Yes, you're good." And she was like, "Oh, I'm good." Right. And it just it having your nervous system and your mind both believing that it's a game changer, right? She's now able to live from that place. And of course, back in real life, there's expansion and contraction, but she's able to put her arms around both and say, yes, I'm good. Even when that voice tells me, don't be happy, right? Don't trust it, right? You're bad. Right? There's also the ability to really remember live from I'm good. I know I'm good. So
Hmm. Yeah, it's like holding both without feeling like one side is not believable and the other side's going to kind
yes,
of destroy you,
yes,
right? So it's
yes.
great. It's great to have that duality can be right there with both
Mhm.
places and be true, right? Oh yeah, I have a hard time sometimes believing this,
Yeah.
but I can believe this, and I also can diminish this other thought that's really
Yeah,
challenging to
and
me.
it's also there's something greater now that's able to hold both rather than go back to like, oh, I've fallen back and I'm bad for doing so, right? Like, oh, I've lost my growth or now I'm in the old way and what's my problem, right? So rather than bouncing between like the states, now there's a part that like even when I get lost, I can I can like feel like something bigger is holding this whole good bad split.
Hmm. Yeah. Right. So that's why you feel like the different ways of working are shifting people and maybe allowing them to stay in these places longer than they might have done otherwise, right?
It absolutely, it's really rewiring the nervous system
Mm-hmm.
at a degree that is hard to get to without this kind of help on board and expanded state work.
Right. Right. Is there anything else? I know we both have a time commitment, so I just wanted to make
Mm,
sure if there was any other words of wisdoms you would have
mm,
us listen to about your work or things that you feel like have
mhm.
been so important in your discovery of doing this work with people.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I would just add that yeah, I think what's important, if I may share, in my work is really the the way that I love working with helping people in expanded states um, really help like stay, right? So we think to work with the nervous system in a way where you're not leaving yourself. So
Mhm.
um, I think people. can orient towards that often before they know, like, oh, I need to calm myself or self-soothe. And that's true. But what we really want to do is have a nervous system that it can allow enough expansion that I can actually stay with intensity, right? Like feelings or difficult moments without leaving myself, without getting overwhelmed and going into fawning, people pleasing, or collapsing. Oh, I'm such a bad person, or, disappearing or going into others. So I work with people who are really doing that work of coming back to me, um, how to ground in my own energy.
Hmm.
So yes, really appreciate how this can sound so simple, but I've gotten to see how it's just life changing. The other thing I'll add, we had talked a bit about spirituality and healing, and I
Hmm.
did I did want to mention that that healing naturally kind of opens to when we've done a certain degree of work, healing opens naturally to an experience of something greater and an experience of meaning. Right. So when we think about spirituality coming into healing work, it's not so much that we're imposing a system or a religious belief but that eventually healing becomes less about avoiding pain or feeling better and more about contacting my life and my wholeness and something bigger, the divine, right? Love, oneness, love for myself, a felt experience, a lived experience of contacting the divine, God, nature,
Hmm.
spirit, however people feel it. So that's also the realm that the work that I'm doing lives in. And I know
Hmm.
you relate to that too. So.
Yeah, so there's a whole other holding space for it too. It's
Mhm,
not just like thinking yourself through a hard
mhm,
time. It's actually like,
mhm.
again, like finding the places where you can be held in the hard time. So so
Absolutely.
that there's other places to go in it.
Absolutely. It's less about figuring it out, and more about relaxing and trusting into something bigger.
Right. Right. We kind of started where we ended where we started.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a really beautiful ending to our conversation, is just like finding those places to really relax into your healing. That it's nothing
Mhm.
you have to force. Like it's there for you to have. Your body, mind wants to have it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. There's a way that the system moves towards fullness and healing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, it's so good to talk to you. So good to hear about this work that you're offering now, because we've been doing so many. Um, you and I communicate to each other just like by via clients, because we do a lot of the same work with people in relationship transitions
Mhm.
and how to
Mhm.
help them through that. And this is just another place where
Mhm.
that can be a real loss of identity and a real transition that feels so
Mhm.
painful. And these are
Yes.
all the things that could help you get through these kinds of times.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes, thank you for allowing me to speak about this. I really hold this work as so it important to get the word out to folks who are going through this. So I appreciate the work you do too.
Yeah.
Thank you, Susan.
Yeah, good. And I appreciate what you do too. It's always really good to talk to you, Jody. So, all right. Well, I'm sure we'll bump into each other either here or elsewhere. And thanks again for coming on today. Appreciate it.
Sounds good. You're welcome. Bye.